Fine. Ah, yes! Live!
Hello, everyone.
Right, so we've just spent the last 5 minutes talking shit, and apparently we've been talking to ourselves.
Don't blame me, I wasn't driving. I'm just a
No,
guest.
Manually. At least you noticed, Steve. We could have been here for 2 hours.
It is a good job you noticed.
What it was is he completely and utterly forgot to start it off because he had an Amstrad gag in the back of his mind that he had to get out.
That's what it was, yeah. You can do that again, Lee.
Every time he hears that word, he loses his shit. Yes.
That's it.
absolutely.
Crumpets.
Jesus.
Lost his crumpets.
Oh,
So shall we go from the top then? So who's going to go first? Joseph.
Should I go one more time?
Let's have another go, shall we?
Yeah. So lately I've been working on my Commodore 64, modifying it heavily. So that's the one. So inside there is a reset circuit, so you can reset it with a combination of keys on the keyboard. And lately I've added this little knob to slow down the machine. So it's like slow mode that Steve already knows or have.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm having lots of fun with this. Again, you can take a little peek inside. You see how this, how open does it look like?
Spaghetti.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, having lots of fun modifying this little machine at the moment. So I will continue doing that for now. So yeah, that's about it.
superb. Neil, are you going to go again?
I'll go again, yeah. Oh, I forgot something as well. The CDTV's gone back to its owner. Thank goodness. That's all gone, and that's all fixed and working. I've got a Macintosh now. You can see him for repair, Steve.
I was just going to say, what's that thing behind you?
Yeah, well, don't dish it, mate. I mean, it's a classic.
Fanboy.
Doesn't say Amstrad, does it, Lee?
No, well, there is that.
Amstrad.
And I've been working on the Pi Storm 600, which has been a total nightmare for me. I don't know why. Sometimes these things are nightmares. I went to sleep last night thinking I'm doing everything right. I kept being thinking, overthinking it. And then I came down this morning, changed the pies, and it worked. So don't know what I was doing wrong.
Dodgy pie. Dodgy pie.
Yeah, but the Pi actually booted a Pi image. If you restored it with a Pi image, it worked. It just didn't work with the Pi Store image. And I don't know why. But I desoldered some ports off of FEB to make it fit.
Yeah.
So I took the USBs off it, etc. And I slammed it in, it worked. I literally did slam it in as well because I'd had enough. So, yeah, so I don't know why. But that's about it for me at the moment. You, Steve?
I've not been doing much just lately. I've just been playing with that A12, not A1200, sorry, A2000. That's been doing quite well. I've enjoyed playing with that. I rescued it from being battery eaten. So yeah, there's lots of stuff coming up with that. I don't want to say too much because there's plenty going to come for that. That's about it. I've got a couple of A1200s that I need to recap. I still haven't got around to it, but I'll be doing that this week. I was going to do it this weekend, but unfortunately the roadworks decided to have pneumatic drills running outside of the property house, so wasn't good for recording. I thought, good excuse, put my feet up for a weekend and start again next weekend. But yeah, that's about it really. Yeah, I've been selling some stuff off, trying to streamline myself down just to Commodore side of things. Getting rid of anything that's Commodore, so when you cut me in half, it says Commodore like Blackpool Rock.
Commodore to the core. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I mean, we all do it, don't we? When we go out and we buy what as nostalgia brings us, you know. And Spectrum for me didn't have much nostalgia, but it was part of my childhood for a very short period of time. But then you go out car boots and you pick something else up like an Xbox, and then you find yourself collecting for that, and then you pick up a PS2, and then you start collecting for that. And before you know it, you go off on a tangent and you get all sorts of systems in your house. It's overrunning your house. You've no room. And, you know, and you just think, you know what, strip back. get a shot of the stuff that doesn't really mean that much to you, and that you've only just sort of picked up and liked, if you know what I mean. Or if you are going to have consoles, do what I've done with an N64. I've got hold of an N64. I've got they call it an EverDrive cartridge. Bang that in. You've got access to all games. You don't have to have shelves and shelves like this behind me with all games stacked up if you don't want. So yeah, I'd go down that route with N64 or a Mega Drive or something like that. But yeah, that's been about me really. Just recently, I've been watching a few YouTube channels. I've watched your channel, Ben. I've watched a couple of stuff on there. I was quite intrigued and quite surprised when you did the Rambo one a while ago, and you mentioned about Morse code in the beginning of the track being the names of the developers and stuff for the game. And I thought that was great. That was great.
Absolutely. And I didn't know that back in the day. I always thought the sound's a bit off. It's not quite right, yeah. And there's something going on there. But actually, yeah, it was Morse code. It was Martin Galwood put it in as the actual name of the programmers and himself. So
I always recognised that it was Morse code, but I never knew what it was for.
Yeah, like it's something. Yeah, that's right. It was like there's Morse in it, but what is it? I don't know. But there you go. Yeah.
It's lovely that we're still finding out these little quirks and qualms from stuff from all them years ago. You know, from them games that we played as kids. You know, it's awesome. And then I watched your latest video with the cards that you're putting in. Is it the Tinsy one? Is it?
Yeah, so the Teensy ROM, from Travis Smith, aka Sensorium. So yeah, chap out in the States who's built that he's kind of a bit of a latecomer to the party, really, because obviously we've had a lot of aftermarket devices of that nature, haven't we? The Kung Fu Flash and obviously the Ultimate. You know, people just keep going on about how good it is, and of course it is great. That's right. But there is space for other stuff. But Travis put together his Teensy ROM, and when I saw it, I thought, oh, hang on, there's possible, it's kind of, we could do some stuff here because I can understand what it's doing. It's basically an Arduino at the center. And I'm thinking, well, we can fiddle with that. So yeah, hence fiddling around with that, which we'll cover a bit more in a minute. But
I think it'd be a good idea for introducing kids into the retro systems.
Yes.
When they're not having to type load and sit there for ages, bored, senseless, and get bored and go off and do other things, they can pick a card up off the wall and go, I want to try that, pump, and it's on instantly for them.
Exactly, because that's kind of what they're used to. But it's also, listen, for me, although there's those times when I kind of want to be nostalgic and fire up the tape deck and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
For the most part, I don't. I want to just play the game, the games and stuff. And that was really why that's why I did One Low 64. Because I've been thinking about it for years, right? But it was just kind of like in the first lockdown, I was like, well, I've got to find some time to, I was working still, but I still had a lot of time at home, as we all did. Yep. And it was like, well, what am I going to do? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, sod it, I'll do that, because my children they'd played a bit of C64 emulation and stuff, but they were always getting a bit frustrated with the trainers and the crack trays and stuff. How do we get past this? Oh, it's another different key press and do this. And I just thought, sod it, I'll do a few. And before I knew it, I had like 100, and I thought, hang on a minute, maybe some other people will be interested in this. And I did start with PRGs first. I didn't have CRTs or cartridges first. So I just do PRGs because it's the simple one. But you're right, that's exactly the whole point. And then again, with this, bringing back the physicality, I've got a few cards here, obviously you guys have seen them in the videos. This is another thing, the kids love that too. Like they can flick through the binder and go, oh, what's that? They can look at it. And I haven't done the backs yet. I'm going to do the backs. So basically it's going to end up with some info on here. But it's a bit more like that kind of tangible thing that they can just pick up, go, oh yeah, and in it goes, and off they play. So yeah, that's right, exactly. I think it's great. But do you know, someone on CSDB a couple of years back actually accused me of being a poor parent because I was like, your son or daughter can't actually manage to press spacebar and stuff. It's like, it's not about that, mate. It's not about that. Convenience, do you know what I mean? Yeah, would you imagine that, having a go at me about being a bad parent because I actually gave something that they enjoyed? Twisted.
Anyway. Teaching them to throw cups of coffee when it crashes 18 times trying to get it to load.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Anger management,
Exactly. So yeah.
I mean, I like it for that side of aspect, but what did catch me is it has to be for something like that, doesn't it? Because otherwise, if we normally we would just select it off the cartridge and fire it up, we would. That's why I say I think it's really good for if it's for like museums or things like that.
That's right.
You can have it on the wall and people can just pick it up and do that. I think it's more of an area there, isn't it? I think.
Absolutely. So Travis and I we were talking about. It's literally only happened over the last sort of 3 weeks. Do you know what I mean? Because basically, I was on the. I still don't own a Mister. I do finally own an FPGA device. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. But I don't own a Mister. And Lee and I talked about that a long time ago, didn't we, Lee? About the Mister and possibly getting one. I still don't have one, but I still plan to get one at some point. But I was on their forums looking around. I thought, oh, this is Tap2 thing. I was like, that's cool. And look, they're doing NFC cards. Oh, that makes sense. So. And then, of course, I was looking at the Teensy one. I thought, hang on a minute, it's dead easy to do a USB host on there. So we could do something on there so that it's actually on the real hardware. And then we just kind of slammed it together, really. Bit of code here and there, bit of some prototyping and stuff. Didn't necessarily thought some people would be interested, but the interest in it's been quite phenomenal, actually. It's kind of caught us both off guard a bit, and we're kind of being slammed from all sorts of places. But you mentioned museums and shows. And they're all like, actually, this would be brilliant. We could just lay it out, when they have all the stuff lined up on the benches, and they've just got cards. People pick it up, put it in, play it, and then you also it saves wear and tear on ports and all that kind of stuff as well, right? It's just that. Yep. It's not going to be like, I'll get this cartridge out, plug it in. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, okay, I'm going to be biased, but I think it is a cool idea.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it's cracking. It's like you said in your video, you're tapping into that physicality side of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's often lost with, even though it's a real machine, or it would work just as well with emulation and stuff like that, because you're still actively doing something.
That's it. That's it. And we're about to lose it. I heard you guys talking about it, wasn't it? So what Microsoft want, they want us to go down that route of completely streamed. There's no physical media whatsoever.
Yeah.
And I think you guys touched upon it in one of your recent videos as well, where you were talking about, do I own the game? Or do I own the right to play the game? And then,
you remember?
Can I transfer it? Can I do anything with it? Exactly.
Can you remember when the Xbox One came out at launch, and what they wanted to do with console, and it had to be locked down solid. And if you bought a game, it tied to your profile. You throw a disc away after that, and you couldn't sell it unless you had a friend that were 3 months or older on your friends list. And you couldn't play games if it wasn't plugged into internet. And everybody just spat the dummy out immediately, and PlayStation was
they reversed it.
This is how we share our games.
That's right.
From that point there on, you knew damn well where Microsoft's business model wanted to go, and that's where they will get to, because that's what they want, and they're doing it. They're doing it.
They're closer now than they were then, right? So it's obvious. The direction of travel is so obvious.
Well, I have bought an Xbox game for bloody years because everything's on Game Pass.
That's right, we do as well.
They're milking you from that way, digital products. And it's a shame, really.
That's right. So, and of course, that was so different to the way we grew up, wasn't it? It was kind of, we all had, back in the day, tapes and discs and cartridges and all that kind of stuff. And, do you know, that was also the cool thing, wasn't it? Certainly for me, and I know, I'm sure you guys can identify with this. It was like going into the shop and having a look at the packaging, looking at what it was. And
exactly.
Like, wow, hang on a minute, is this good or whatever, and you kind of make you'd make a purchase decision on how good the cover was some of the time. Especially before the magazines.
Absolutely,
yeah. The magazines were good because they would give you some sense of what was good and what was shit.
Yeah.
But there was a time before that. And do you remember I remember those days when you used to go into all sorts of little shops, little news agents and stuff, and they'd have a selection of games. You'd go in and go,
you used to have revolving. Yeah.
Central stations, news agents, everybody had them, didn't they?
That's right. Exactly. It was mad. A bit like arcades. It was like arcades on the side of corner shops and stuff. You'd have a few cabinets and all that kind of stuff. It's all gone now, isn't it? But that's another thing. Because for me, it's Commodore, obviously. And when I say Commodore, 64 is the core of my passion. But the Amiga was also a very, very important part of my childhood.
Yeah.
But so were the Muzzers, the arcades. Do you know what I mean? I spent a lot of time, far too much time, really. More than my parents were happy with. I lived near the coast as well. So basically, it was like during the summer, I lived in the arcades. But hey,
they were awesome, weren't they? They were awesome.
They were. But it's all gone now, isn't it? Because I know you occasionally see the odd thing that's, out there. But
I've not been yet, but there's a bar that's opened up in my town that I haven't been to yet, but I'm going to do. Okay. And that's all got retro arcade machines in it and games in it. It's called Nerds Bar. But that's quite local, so I'm going to check.
Is it real hardware? Is it emulated or something? Is it real hardware?
I don't know. From pictures I've seen,
Maybe.
it looks like it could be newer stuff, like you play a one-up stuff or like that. But I
Can't blame you, actually, to be fair, because having old cabinets that they actually have to look after is a right ball ache, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I wouldn't want to be thinking bloody pint of beer will be going over stuff as well.
Yeah, whoops. Oh, shit, that's $5,000 gone.
You got to think at,
exactly.
You got to think at when we went to the retro show, there was machines getting carted away there, weren't they, breaking down? Do you remember?
Yeah, there was, yeah.
That was cab got took away. That was on for half a day and then it broke.
Yeah. But we're keeping them going.
Actually, you guys do a fantastic job about that, So I'll let the guys speak as well, but just wanted to say, because I'm not really, so I dabble. Just to prove a point, I do have a soldering iron, but it's a crappy one, right? It's all right. It's all right. It works.
That's it.
But I'm not really a hardware guy. I mean, for me, it was always software, to be honest. But I have done a few things. I've resocketed some chips and some C64s and stuff. Change, kernel ROMs, all that kind of stuff, and fiddle around that way. But really, not a great deal like you guys. But it's great to have guys like yourselves who are actually keeping things alive. Yeah, definitely, it's important.
Yeah, it is. Otherwise, they'd be just gone, and we'd just be left with emulators. I mean, my grandkids come round and they want to put the Commodore on and play Ghostbusters, or they want to play a leaderboard, or not so long since I did buy an arcade machine. It was relatively cheap. It was one of those jammer cabs, but it's a 60-in-1. So it's got 1942 and Pac-Man and Galaxians and all them are on it. So you can't get them away from it. You switch that on, that's it. They're glued. I'm staying for night. You what, mate?
Skateboards are monstrous.
The original ones are. This little jumbo one I've got in here, it's about that big. Do my fingers back in.
Some of the arcade boards are massive. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and so many chips.
Yeah, here he is. Look. He's got.
some of them are triple decks as well.
Look at the fucking size of this.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what she
triple
said.
Deck, fella.
I know. Look at all those chips. I know. It's
some of them are triple decked. I've seen.
Yeah.
Like original Spy Hunter, I think they were. I'm not sure. It might have been double.
Yeah, it's definitely nutty stuff. And of course, you're talking about jammer stuff, and obviously because I did do that. So believe it or not, guys, I actually lived in China for 5 years. And so while I was there, I did actually have access to quite a lot of Japanese candy cabs because they've got a lot of stuff out there from Asia just generally, right? And they do knockoffs as well. They still do them now. But back then it was a little bit more popular. And I actually had a candy cab sit down, 27-inch CRT monitor and this thing. You sat down. Jesus. I put a PC inside it. I what was it back in the day? I used to buy the interface so you could connect it to the jammer harness and then run it through to the VGA and all that kind of stuff. It would do all the kind of stuff for you, and then convert over to obviously 15 kilohertz so you could put it through to the CRT. I've forgotten what it's called now, but there was a guy that used to make these boards, and you could put all the harness in, and you could wire up all the buttons and stuff. And it's really, really good. But I couldn't bring it back because it's just too big.
Yeah.
So I sold it to a friend and I left. So I've never had a cabinet since, but I'd love to have one. And of course, they've got a jammer harness available for things like Mister, haven't they? You can buy an add-on, and it kind of allows you to plug directly into the harness that's in a cabinet. It's mad.
I mean, the arcade cabinet that I bought, it was CRT jammer in it. I think it's a 90s one, silver line it was called. And screen didn't work at the time, so I wasn't sure. I've never played with an arcade machine or anything like that, so I was a little bit, what shall I do? And I thought about taking the screen out and putting a nice LCD screen in it and putting a Raspberry Pi in it and running emulation on it and thinking, it'd be really good to be able to have all freedom of all them games. And then I started having to play around with CRT, and me and Lee were having a look at it over online and stuff, weren't we? And we discovered it were just a few diodes that would try first. And I found out one of the resistors, where main power comes in, there were like wires that come up with this white block resistor. And one of the wires from it were actually leaning against it, were trapped behind it, shorting it out. So that's what the problem was. So I got the CRT running again, in a long story short. So now I was like, now the CRT works, I don't want to put an LCD in it.
No, that's it. You see, because they've got all the
Same,
filters
isn't
and
it?
stuff, and they are really good now, aren't they? Like they did, but it will never be the same as a CRT.
No.
It just you can't quite recreate that, can you? They've
Well,
got pretty close, I'll grant them, but it's not the same.
Well, me and our lads were playing Bust a Move on N64, and I'd put it through HDMI onto my telly, and you could see the balls, little bubble balls, and you could see little jaggy lines around them.
That's right. You're right.
And you knew darn well that if that were on a CRT, you wouldn't see them jaggy lines.
That's right. You lost that.
Yeah.
That's right. It blurred it out, exactly. It made things look smoother than they really were. That's right. Because it wasn't quite as sharp, with the triads, wasn't it?
We had a couple of hours on it.
It's kind of like it would always bleed between a little bit, and therefore it would create colours that are just like in between almost, right?
Yeah. So we played for a couple of hours on the 1701 that you've got in background there. That was great on there. On one shoulder,
that shoulder.
That's it.
I didn't put mirror on.
And it looked absolutely fantastic on there, to be fair. But obviously, I wanted to put it in the living room and put it on big screen. So next night, the cable arrived and we tried it on big screen. But to be honest, I think I'd rather have it back on 14-inch monitor screen. To be fair,
a bit closer, isn't it? If you sit a bit closer, you're all right. It's
Yeah, I might dig out
that's what we used. Yeah, like the old TV sets, 14-inch. Whatever. That's kind of what you had.
I still have my same television set to what I had in my bedroom when I was 12, 13.
See? Wow.
Still the original telly.
I wish I still had mine. I had like a Matsui or something from Curry's, like way back when, and it was just it went on for so long that little TV. I can remember taking it to university, so I still had it, and it was still working fine. Really boxy, and then it boxed out again. So you've obviously got the whole cathode ray tube. Obviously, it has to go right the way out, but it was really bulky, even though it was only a tiny little screen. But it was a great TV, and it was brilliant for that. Yeah.
Yeah, they're brilliant.
Well, speaking about the stuff getting turned into digital, the problem with back in the day was I remember EA Sports or EA Games giving it a big one about piracy. And they kept saying, "Oh, well, we're losing all this money," and in reality, they was not losing the money because the people weren't going to buy it anyway. And I think the same thing has happened now. And what's happened is people like Microsoft and Sony, they don't want people reselling the game down at CEX and whatever else. So what they want to do is, or GameStop or whatever the Yankee version's called, but they want to nail it down so that you're licensed to your copy and they can't resell it again. So if anyone else wants it, they've got to go to them. And I think that's the main driver behind it. Is just they're thinking they're going to get more revenue out of it.
Well, they pushed it on slowly but surely, by giving you games on your discs. Now you don't no longer get a game on a disc, you get a download instigator on a disc. So they've got you used to downloading, buying a disc, putting it in and downloading game. Well, now I can't be asked going up to the shop anymore and buying this disc when I can just buy it there and download it anyway. So it's that transitional steps that they've taken you through to get you to what do they call it? Condition you to accepting just buy it off online. And top and bottom of it, that's what they've done. And it's a shame because nobody's got anything for the money. I've said it, your PS3 and your Xbox 360 are your last retro games consoles, because they run off games off disc. So that's it. You're not going to have them in 20 years' time. The 360 will be running the games. Your Xbox One can't, because it has to be online and they can't get online anymore because they've been taken offline. Do you know what I mean? And you've lost your rights to them games then because they're no longer accessible. You've got nothing. So yeah, your 360 and your PS3, I reckon, are your last sort of era type consoles that's going to be around. Is retro.
Shame, really.
Yeah, it is. They've killed it, haven't they?
It is a shame.
Yeah.
It is a shame. And we lose control from it as well. Like, yeah, exactly. I mean, I know there's the businesses that have sprung up around the whole second-hand market as well.
But is that consequence from all them years back with all that piracy all the way through the line that was going through? Do you know that have we pushed them to go ahead to do that because of the past actions.
I'm not sure the piracy was as bad as that.
It was rife back in there, though, wasn't it?
It was, definitely.
It was silly on the Amiga. It was just ridiculous. Yeah. It was ridiculous.
Exactly.
I think I had about 10 original games, but I had about well over 1,000. Do you know what I mean?
That's all computer clubs were. One, it was copy parties. You just went there with a blank of 100 bits.
Ding, ding, ding.
Next copy exactly on every computer.
Ask yourself this, right? Out of all those copies made, if you didn't have access to the copy, would you have gone and bought it?
No, not all of them.
Not all of them, for sure. Nowhere near. No, yeah.
So they weren't losing that money because it was never going to be theirs.
Exactly.
I know that I didn't have money as a kid, and I mean the stuff on the Amiga, Jesus, the X copy was running all the time. There was no way
with multiple drives as well.
Yep,
you know it. And
that's why we're playing games now.
The thing is, I wouldn't have been able to afford them anyway. So
exactly.
You didn't lose any money out of me.
True, yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is not only the consoles doing this stuff with the games. The problem is that the modern operating system and everything else is dependent on some kind of server behind and some kind of service and IP addresses, and everything that will be gone in 20 years. So, yeah, that's also a big problem as well. Not just games, everything.
Yeah, I mean, what have they done now? Samsung have brought a television out that runs Xbox One software.
Yeah, which is mad, right?
So, yeah, I said this. I've said it on
mad in the first place, but then cross-brand as well. Like,
I've said it on most streams and stuff like that, and I said it years ago. Eventually, it'll just be a streaming platform, just like Stream.
Yeah.
Because there's just no point in developers building these fancy computers and stuff like that to run them when they can just live stream it off one database straight onto.
Well, that's it. You see, they have all the centralized mega kit, and then of course all you need is a thin client. It's just.
Well, you know, don't you? When they bring out a new console, they're selling them at a loft, aren't they? They just want to get them out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
they do.
If they don't have to do that, then the quid's in. You know.
Yeah, you can you can just send terminals, and that's it. Everything else is in cloud on the servers, and that's it.
Yeah.
Just I don't know. The Xbox and the PS5, they're almost identical architecture-wise.
Yes.
And they're near enough a PC anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, they've all gone AMD, haven't they? Yeah.
So this R&D they're talking about is some arty-farty critter in some back room making these weird fucking console boxes.
Yeah, how weird can we make this thing look, and it'll still stand up straight?
PS5. It looks like the bloody wings come off a plane.
It's weird.
It's the way it's gone now, isn't it? Because there's no competition anymore between different companies like there was, and they seem to have hit like I was talking about this with my lad before. There's no big moves anymore in computer graphics or anything like that. It's just seems to be really slowed down now. Like they've come to the limit and they don't know how to push it any further.
So now you buy a new console that costs you £500 so you can see a reflection in a puddle.
Exactly, that's it. That's what I said to my lad. Yeah, you got HD puddles, HD water.
Yes, that puddle does look damn good.
That puddle does look damn good. You know.
Yeah.
But like I said, back in the day, you had your Commodore, your Spectrums, whether it's you're talking about Nintendo, whether you're talking about Sega, you always had that rivalry. They all had the different sound. Yeah. They all had the different graphics. I mean, what was our last playing the other night? Donkey Kong 64 and N64. And I just said to her, shut your eyes and listen to all that sound effects and music and tell me what game you're playing. She said Crash Bandicoot. Everything with Crash Bandicoot. You know what I mean? All the sound effects in the background. But yeah, they all are different. And I said, over years, as they come up and come up and come up and come up, and it's small increments, and everything's the same, and you can't tell the difference between an Xbox and a PlayStation and a PC. So what's the point in them?
Exactly. You could tell the difference between a C64 and a Spectrum and an Amstrad, couldn't you, Lee?
Yeah, you're fucking right. You can always tell the difference in an Amstrad.
Yeah, but that's how it was. The
Even
same as
just by
Amiga.
listening to it, right?
I mean-
You didn't need to see it, just listen.
Yeah,
It was like,
yeah.
Obviously, the Amiga and the ST were a bit closer, but you could still tell the difference. Obviously, when I saw them, because I was an Atari ST owner, and I went and played with mates Amiga, and I thought, oh, this knocks the socks off mine. This is embarrassing. I'm not going to show you mine now. That's how it was.
It were great. It were great. That back playground and all. You know what I mean? No, you've got a specky. You've got 65 pastel colours.
that's right. Up and down the land. That was
The Amiga stuff was developed on the ST in the beginning and ported back over.
yes, direct ports. Yeah,
What?
Yeah.
it's the same CPU, right? So you know, yeah.
Almost the same. It was 8 megahertz. And
Yeah, and 7.14.
Very
Yeah.
similar anyway. Same
Yeah, I
instruction.
remember those arguments because I was on the ST side for a bit. We got 8 megahertz.
That's like the only one we had.
Exactly.
The problem was someone made the Atari monitors and they covered up the overscan area. I don't know if you realise that with the bezel on the monitor. So when you play an Atari ST game, you've always got the 64-like border.
Yeah.
Whereas on the Amiga, they said fuck it, and they just went overscan all the way.
Yes.
You know, you play a game and it was full screen. But
Yes.
the ST was always this 320 by 200 box with 16 colours. And I mean, I love the ST, but it was
Yeah.
a poor second to any Amiga.
I think, didn't he come from the same design team as well, part of him,
Yeah,
anyway?
that's right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So they came from the
J
same,
minor.
like,
Yeah. J minor.
machine,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
It was supposed to get a load of custom chips. It was supposed to get blitter and all sorts of stuff in it. And if it had done, then I think it really would have given the Amiga a run for its money.
Well, that was the
Absolutely.
STE, wasn't it? The
Well,
enhanced one. I mean, you had your SIM
yeah.
slots as well, which was better for
Yeah.
memory upgrades, and you had the 4096 colours. You had the stereo sound, but again, nothing was developed. I think about 3 games came out for it. One was that Comic
Obsession
Relief one,
Pinball.
Sleepwalker.
Yeah, Obsession Pinball and
you go.
05.
Yeah, there was nothing for it.
Yeah, that was about it, I think.
And the demos,
Yeah.
obviously the
But
demo
that was
community. Yeah,
But even still, you had a demo on an ST, right? And it was still pretty fucking shit compared to
Yeah.
any demo on an Amiga.
oh, exactly, yeah. Well, Amiga had all the custom chips, didn't they? That's what it was.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a shame that, I mean, Trammell wanted them in, but it's just a shame they said no before they released it. I think they should have gone for it, to be honest. And I think Atari would probably still, maybe be still
Yeah.
about.
Well, Tramiel might have bought Commodore back.
Yeah. It wouldn't have surprised me.
Yeah, because he was obviously pissed off that he'd lost Commodore, wasn't he? But
He'd have bought it back and sacked them all, wouldn't they?
oh, yeah. He was clearly not. He didn't mess around. He was not the kind of guy to mess around, was he?
No, he sacked
Oh,
all-
known for clearing the floor. It was known as a jack attack.
That's it,
But
yeah.
of course, he's also. It's quite. It's weird because he's one of those situations. Certainly for me, of course, he was instrumental in kind of getting it going and everything. But it was really those designers, you know, the Al Sharpentiers and Bill Hurds and those people that really kind of made it all happen. And then he still hobbled them, didn't he? So like the disk drives on the 64 could have been so much better and so much quicker, but because they were like, let's not do that properly. Let's just bodge it and do it cheap. And then it was crap because of it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It were only down to Colonel Ron Rayleigh that did it. They just didn't have time to fix
Well,
it.
wasn't there some issues with the bus, though? Wasn't there some issues with the bus that they didn't get quite right?
Well,
I'm not sure.
it wasn't more a bus, it was more like a bicycle.
Oh, right, yeah.
To be fair, if you had a 1540 disk drive on a VIC 20, they were really fast. Yes, okay, it were a lot less data than what the 64 had. But when you move that disk drive over to the 64, it wasn't compatible because the 64 were too slow to accept it. So they had to slow down the speeds in
That's
the
right.
kernel.
They had to artificially slow it down. That's right. Yeah. That's
So then 1541 came out, and they even sent you 1541 chips out to put into your 1540s to convert them for next stage of computers.
Wow.
Who'd want to slow
Because
it
they were
down?
basically a whole computer, weren't they? I mean, they are.
Yes.
Yeah, they
The
are.
drive
Yeah.
is a whole separate
Basically,
computer
yeah.
in its own right, with its own processor and everything.
It's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why it's so big and heavy. Yeah, exactly.
I think there's some music in there for it where you can put a disc in it,
There
and
is.
it bounces its heads around and plays a
I've
tune.
heard that, yeah. Cool, that is.
Yeah,
That's true.
you don't want to play that one.
No, not necessarily good for the hardware, but
Sounds like an Amstrad, doesn't it, Lee?
That's a complete head wrecker, that is.
Yeah, well, at least you know your heads are all right if it works after it.
I remember
Sure, it's
seeing
not
that
meant
back
to
in
make that
the day. Yeah, but later on they developed a parallel mod you could do to it. I don't know if you ever saw this. I actually had one back in the day. I think I was about 15. I was still at school. And what it was, they take a parallel cable directly off the VIA into the user port.
Yeah.
And you just change out the ROM.
RAM injection, is it?
and it was fucking fast.
Almost.
That was really fast. But there's something new. Well, I say new, but it's been around a few years now. Is Transwarp, I believe it's called.
I've heard of that one.
I've heard of it. I haven't used it. Really.
It can load off a 1541 on a stock kernel at 40 times normal speed.
No way.
Wow.
Yeah, I shit you not. It's called
That's fast.
Transwarp.
Yeah, that's faster than a bike.
Yeah. So
Slightly.
the downside is if you save, it's at regular Commodore speeds, i.e. 3 minutes a fucking file. But for loading, you've got to specially format your disk in a certain way, and it will just blast it straight into the 64.
Nuts.
It's amazing with stuff that they're bringing out now, isn't there, for 64 and that.
It is, yeah, it's crazy.
All these years down the line, we never thought we'd be still sat here messing about with a 64.
No, none of the original designers would have done either, really, would they?
Oh.
They're amazed by it still, aren't they, when they hear about people doing it? What, really? Wow.
Yeah, I don't think they were designed to last that long, were they? Didn't expect them to last that long. So,
Bill Hurd said the chips were the way the chips were developed and created degrades the chip itself. The process itself degrades it.
Right.
They weren't expecting them to be alive in 20-year time, not let alone 40.
Exactly, and they're still kicking away, yeah.
People complain to the Bill how chips are going bad and so on, and he just said, well, guys, it's been 40 years.
40 years old.
How many other devices have you had since then that have also died? And they're gone. But yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So they never thought that these machines were going to be live today. Definitely.
No.
So
What kind of asshole do you have to be to go to Bill Hurd and complain? Like he's responsible for it as well.
His 42-year-old chips died.
You're bloody useless, yeah.
Pretty useless, these are, yeah.
But we've got pretty much now, we've got every chip, haven't we? Every chip that's been reproduced. Now.
Essentially, isn't it? Yeah, it's all been reproduced now, isn't it? Pretty much, yeah.
So we'll live on forever.
We have them all.
I've still got some unused ones, look. RS ones.
What them for?
They're the 6522s that got off that guy.
Yeah,
Bought them brand new, never used them. I've still got them boxed. I've just kept them in the side here.
You need to test them.
No, they work, mate.
Hey?
They will work.
We might have died in that box.
No, look at them. Look at that. It's brand new. Look at that. Look how shiny that is.
Sparkling, yeah.
Nice.
Joseph,
Hoarding chips, eh?
Sorry?
You said something?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Just listen to us talking shit as usual. Yeah, no.
I've got a load of those VIAs as well, Neil. I got them from AliExpress.
Yeah.
And I bought a pack of 10 of them, and they were like 60 pence each. Jesus. And they all worked.
All right. That's what I mean. They work.
Sorry?
They will work. They're just staying in my drawer for when I need one. I actually did use one in the, what was it needed it? The BBC.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Beeb lost its keyboard, and that's what it was. 6522 had gone.
Bloody hell.
Well, it's like the prices of stuff generally, though, like the older stuff, it's just gone a bit silly, isn't it? Really. I mean, luckily, you're still buying stuff, aren't you, Steve? So you've picked up, from what I can see, I picked up a few bargains, but some of the pricing now has gone a bit mental, isn't it?
I agree. Yeah.
Well, hang on, that's a virtual background. That ain't his shit.
No, I noticed there was shimmer. This, you know,
he's right. He's right. It is a virtual background, but
it's a
I do
picture
love all
of.
that shit. Yeah. Oh, that's in the other room.
Exactly, it is yours. It's just not behind you.
Yeah, I mean, it started off, like I said before, it started off collecting with Commodore 64, I mean, nostalgia, and then I decided that I wanted to get a Spectrum because that was part of nostalgia, and then a Spectrum Plus came along, and then a 128 came along, and then a Plus 3 came along, and it were like, before you know it, it snowballs. So yeah, so that's why I'm going to strip back. Stick with me Commodore, because Commodore works. And you get more views on YouTube with Commodore.
To be honest, that is true.
It is true.
But I do like to do other things as well because it's of interest to me. So
yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah,
I
think it's good. I mean, I heard you talking actually, Neil, about the fact that you were like joking about the traces on Spectrums and stuff. They're so well made. I can't imagine you'd actually break them while you're trying to work on them.
More than 500 pluses that got bad traces, isn't it? It was bloody batteries.
Yeah.
Right.
Weren't originals hand drawn or traces on Spectrums?
I think they are, yeah. I mean, you don't even need a microscope, do you? That's what I like about them. Like the Atari 2600, I love working on them as well because you can see breaks. You can just look at there's a break there.
Just look at them.
Take your glasses off and work on something for a change.
So good. Yeah, old school is best.
The Spectrum was superb for what they accomplished with so little.
Absolutely. Very clever.
That really was the bare bones of a computer.
Bare bones. Yeah. Even the screen flicker, right, as you're pressing keys, isn't it, as they said. It's like, there you go.
Yeah, and
just bare bones. Yeah. We could get rid of that, but it would cost another 20p a unit, so no.
Yeah, and it got the computers into households that wouldn't have had computers, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
That's what it was.
To be fair, you know, you can't take that away from that particular thing. It was so instrumental in British for British youngsters. Because a lot of kids back then, I mean, we were lucky. We we knew that not everybody could afford to have Commodores and stuff, you know.
But 48K computer back then were brilliant. 48K, it were massive. You know, even though we had 64K systems, it was still a high lot of memory because we still had VIC-20s around and stuff like that at the time. You know,
weren't the 48Ks built with some bad chip? They were known bad chips, like they could only go up to 48K.
Half of the chips were bad or something, and
they were tested that they didn't fully work, but they worked enough for the 48K. So they were
so like the higher side of the RAM chip didn't work. Like that, they used half of the side of RAM.
Isn't it?
Yeah, Rally Express.
But that was what they were doing. They were clever about how they were going to make it as cheap as possible, and that's what Sinclair said, wasn't it? It's like it's got to be 99 quid, and that's it.
Exactly, yeah.
And we're going to make lots of money on it at the same time. So,
and like his electric C5 car that they were building, I mean, they were far ahead of his time. I mean, if he did doing that now, it would probably make a great success of it.
I actually want one of them.
He was ahead of his time.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love one of them to go to work on, but put lithium batteries in it and brushless motors.
I can just see your beard flopping in wind now.
Yeah, definitely.
C5 that.
Yeah. Have it popping wheelies, mate.
You put like tube valve on the back of it as well, yeah?
I'd have to have a wheelie bar on the back of it to stop it from flipping.
Parachute come out to slow you down.
A guy in our town had one.
Yeah.
All right.
Across the estate, and there was pedal as well. You could pedal.
They were, they were pedal, yeah. I had to go in one when I was a kid. There was a campsite in Plassey in Wales, and you could rent it out for the day at the campsite and go around the campsite, and I loved it. I did. I mean, at the time, I had a BMX, a Peugeot BMX, so that was like cutting edge technology on it. I mean, it's like really fun. I always remember it used to wheel spin. It was really great.
Well, my first machine was a Dragon, and that was really shit. That only had uppercase graphics, 4 colours, and they purposely picked the most retina burning colours you could expect. I think one of the graphics modes was white, pink, orange, and black, I think. And the other graphics mode was red, green, blue, and black, I think. Yeah. No, yellow. So everything just looked fucking insipid. But I used it a lot. That machine, I used it a lot.
There was a guy down the road that had a Dragon 32 across the road. He used to go down to like play computers there, and all I can remember was every game was Cuthbert.
Yeah.
It was either Cuthbert in the caves, Cuthbert in space, Cuthbert under the sea. And it's the same game but with different levels.
Yeah, Cuthbert in the jungle was Pitfall where they ripped it off.
Exactly. Yeah.
They're like, it's okay, we'll copy that. We'll just put Cuthbert in the title. It'll be fine. And they got away with it.
That was it, yeah.
That's like Jeff Minter. That's all right. We'll copy that. We'll just sling a couple of rainbows in. We're good.
Different. Nobody will notice. It's right. A lot of the old games like that. There's tons of it, wasn't there? And there's a few exceptions which got stuck in, obviously got into trouble, didn't they? So you got Who Dares Wins on the 64. That one got yanked, didn't it? Because the league kicked up.
Yeah.
And then they brought out Who Dares Wins 2, just with some small modifications. Of course, Great Guiana Sisters.
Exactly, that's a biggie.
The thing is, you don't mess around with the big N because they get, Their lawyers, I think you said as well recently, Lee, their lawyers are always on speed dial. They're ready to just go. If they see anything that even slightly encroaches, they're off.
Yeah, you got Power World now, haven't you?
Yes, they love. I bet they're loving that one. Yeah.
They must be scared they're going to lose the Nintendos if they don't report.
It is just Pokemon, isn't it? I mean, it's
absolutely. It's yeah.
I thought
the kids love it.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it has lost, I think, 2/3 of its player base. I think it was a big hype at the start and it has gone down. But I think all games do that anyway.
Well, they do. That's right.
Yeah.
Starfield.
Exactly. That's another thing as well, Starfield. Yeah. And what's the name of that? Baldur's Gate.
That nearly got off the shelf and it tanked.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, another one.
Do you think they're just pushing marketing so hard to try and get you to buy these games that your expectations are way too high?
No,
like we did back in days, really. When we looked at covers.
Honestly, I believe, Steve, that people have got huge game libraries on Steam, GOG, Xbox that they don't even play half the fucking games, mate. Mm-hmm. I really believe that.
I'm the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I dread to think how much I spent on Steam. I look at it and I think, why have I got all these games? I don't use half of them.
Mm-hmm. Now, some of them, have you even loaded?
Exactly. Some of them have got like 5 minutes of gameplay. just loaded them in and they're gone.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
I've got games in my Steam library I haven't even fucking installed.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, that looks good. It's on special.
And it's £2, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Buy it, yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. It fetches back memories of 199 Master Tonic range, doesn't it? That's what it
is. But the 199 games from Master Tronic, some of them were really good. I had one called Big Mac.
I remember that.
Mad Magnet Man.
Yeah.
And you know what? I remember going down to town and getting it and coming back, and I must have spent the entire fucking weekend playing that.
Exactly. It's the Dizzy games I like.
Good.
That's right. Because there wasn't a lot of that stuff was because of the bedroom coders. It was coming from all over, wasn't it? And some people were doing good stuff and they would pick it up dirt cheap and sell it on for £1.99, and it was, but it was still good because somebody actually really knew what they were doing and spent some time on it, and other stuff was complete shit. That's what, but you never knew. And do you know, we used to buy stuff at the shop sometimes, and if it wasn't any good, we would take it back. I can even remember, this is naughty, taking tapes and actually rubbing them up and down magnets just to make sure that they didn't work, even if they tested them. Like, it doesn't work, mate. Sorry, it doesn't work.
Do you remember when you used to get a tape? First of all, you could take it back if you didn't like it. And
that's true.
Weird change. And they said you can't take a game back for not liking it.
You know why? Because Amstrad Tape to Tape came out and people were
copying. Well, that's right. So yeah. We did do that sometimes, actually, as well, naughtily.
Stuff, yeah, we did. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That high-speed dubbing, that was brilliant.
Indeed, my old man had a mono recording deck, and it was tape to tape, and it was perfect. We never, because lots of people would try them on the old tape to tape with stereo, and it was always a bit weird because it obviously drops the signal slightly, doesn't it? It kind of splits it. And but this mono, and it never went wrong because Spectrum was easy. It felt like you could tape to tape Spectrum stuff on anything, and it would work. Almost.
Yeah, you could.
64 stuff was quite fussy.
The Spectrum sound when it goes into it, it's got quite a wide bandwidth, so it's pick it up, and they do pretty much lower their alt really. Where the Commodores didn't, because it was digital input.
That's right.
Yeah, I had the tape to tape, and then I moved on from that, and when I got the action replay, the freeze frame cartridge, freeze frame, fantastic. You could, and I had no opportunity to save my game because it'd start from wherever you press the button. It took you past all them security questions. You know, like little Jet Set Willy with your card that you had to go F12 and put the colours in to get past it. So it did away with all that, and it fast loaded everything. So some of that took sort of 20 minutes or something like that to load. When you freeze framed it, reloaded it, it was about 3 minutes. It was awesome.
That's true. Well, those super turbos, as I think they called it, they didn't always last very long. Though you do them and then they would stop working after a couple of months or something. You have to record them again, maybe sometimes. Depends on the tapes, because of course there was you always were wisest to buy good quality tapes, and also the short tapes, right? Weren't you? Because remember, people get C90, C60, get more on there. Don't do that. Get the C15s because they're better quality. The tape's thicker, isn't it? And so I think it basically, in that case,
There you go. Boots C15.
Yeah,
they were the ones. Yeah. Somebody's
funny,
asked as well.
Absolutely, good stuff.
Somebody's just asked in the chat. Yeah, what a Commodore 64 is. There's one behind StatMat.
No, I said, over there. With the Commodore 64, if you were tape to tape in, I had one of those, Seisho made those from Curry's, the tape to tapes, like a little boom box. I had one of them with a high-speed dubbing on it. And I always remember you had to turn up the treble, turn down the bass, and then go across. Otherwise it didn't load.
That's right. And you found the sweet spot. And it's like, there we go. And we put a little mark on there, a little bit of Tipex. There you go. Now we know. Wow. Old school.
Oh, yeah.
It worked.
On your dad's hi-fi, you'd be really pleased. What's this on here?
But like Steve said, when the cartridges come out, everything changed.
Yeah.
There was a guy across the estate. He had lots of Commodore stuff. And I spent a lot of time around his ass. And he had the freeze frame when it first came out, which I think was the very first one. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ, we ripped everything off. It was just load it up, freeze, bam, and it just copied everything.
Mm-hmm.
It just dumped the entire memory content.
Well, that's it. You can't. That's right. It's already past all of the other. I mean, because it dumps everything. That's pretty much what I'm doing with one low 64, right? So I find the bit where it's just about to start, and then dump out the vast majority of memory. So it's the same principle, really. It's like that's why I call it, to joke it to other people, I say the clean freeze method, because you're just finding that thing. And of course, with emulators today, it's really easy. Back then, it was a bit more tricky, but those cartridges also, especially the later action replays, they had a great machine code monitor. You could set breakpoints, you could do all those things that you can do today, but still far more convenient in an emulator. So it's dead easy usually to find the entry point and go, right, dump it.
Yeah.
And it's, there it is. Don't care how you've stored it on the tape or whatever. I mean, tape protection doesn't really exist anyway, not in the same way as disc stuff, right? Disc is a totally different thing. So,
Yeah.
But even so, they still do the little sneaky ones. So what was it? Star Pause. We said, if you guys saw that, there was this, they talked about things that we find out all these years later. No one had realised that there was a sneaky bit of protection, even quite a lot of the crackers, sneaky protection in there that detected for how long the tape continued to play after the game had loaded.
All right.
So it was like it had to be the right length of lead out. Otherwise, it would intentionally corrupt part of the game later in the game.
Clever.
There you go.
Untape loaders I didn't like was the Melbourne House ones, like the way of the exploding fist. When you started to load, you watched the bars and it went white. Yep, and you had to rewind it a little bit and set it up again.
It could actually fix itself, but yeah, it's right. It was a bit prone to that, exactly. Yeah.
Whoa, yeah.
I really like that one.
The game's brilliant, but the loading side of it, I'm all about.
Yeah,
the game's brilliant, absolutely. Yeah. It's like exploding fist because again, you've got we talk about the 64 in it, the two obviously SID chips, and some of the digis on they don't quite work on the newer ones, do they? The newer SID chips, and that's quite interesting as well. And of course, that iconic bit in Way of the Exploding Fist where it does the Bruce Lee sound during the load up, and that doesn't work on a C. It doesn't. Well, you hear something, but it's not the same because it's obviously hacking.
Yeah, the 658 one had a deeper grunt. I think it had more of an analog grunt, where the other one has more of a digital.
Well, that's right. That's why they're saying it. So many SID chips, even on the old ones, each one is not the same as another. They're all different.
They're all different.
My daughter come round. It was a couple of years ago now, and I've probably mentioned it before anyway. But she come round with her husband, and I put hi-fi on, and I've still got a Denon stacker system it gone, and I put Euphoria music on tape into it, and she says, "What's this?" I went, "You know what this is?" She went, "No, I don't mean that. I mean, what is it? What are you playing it on?" So I pulled tape out. She went, "What?" And I went, "Yeah, why? Why are you saying that?" She says, "Because I can hear every single instrument in background playing and petering out, and it sounds so lovely." As what's the difference between your analog music and your digital? It switches on, off, digital. So they're gone out, in, out, in, out, and you don't get no fade in, fade out from the waves of the music. And she absolutely loved it. And it's amazing to be able to see that and for her to come out and comment and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
It's very true, absolutely. It's like with R2, we've shown them cassette tapes and stuff. When I fire up the 64, they were like, "What is that?" You know, it's a cassette tape. And of course, we don't have any video stuff anymore, but we all remember that, don't we? In the wars between VHS and Betamax and all that
Betamax
stuff.
and Video 2000.
It's funny, you know, it's old school stuff. Yeah, exactly. Because we've moved on. I mean, I can remember looking back at that stuff when we had CDs, and you can buy writable CDs. Oh, blimey, DVDs, blimey.
Exactly.
Well, that's old hat now as well, isn't it? It's gone.
Yep.
So it's like we've seen a lot in our time. A lot has changed.
Yeah, they don't understand that these old computers. I'll try to explain to them that the music that they're listening to isn't a music track. It's not an MP3.
No,
it's not an audio file.
Yeah.
And they were like, they were trying to get their heads around it, and I said, no, it's actually programmed. The chips are programmed, the computer's programmed to use that sound for you, like your graphics. You know, we don't have models where we put in models, and we have sprites allocated and put them in instead in the backgrounds. You know, it blows the mind. And I just even to grandkids when you go up to them and tell Pokemon to change border. Oh, I changed colour on border. It inspires them to do more. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not like it these days. We used to get manuals, didn't we, like this, that told us everything about the computer and how to peek and poke and mess about with RAM. You know, now what do you get? You get a link to go and have a look at your product you've bought online.
How to turn it on.
And a link to the
program anymore.
Yeah, and the terms and conditions, you know, so that you actually know that where you stand legally.
Like nowhere.
Yeah. Basically in our favour all the way, okay?
Yeah. They wanted us to program, didn't they, when they brought the Spectrums out and the Commodores and stuff. They wanted us to be able to write software and now they know they can milk it all from that area. They don't want us to know how to make all these games anymore.
No.
Exactly, yeah. That's what you learn at school, wasn't it, in the school? Well, I grew up with BBCs. Exactly. You used to go in there and you used to program in BASIC.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, they used to press escape and get all the listing up for the network and change it to say we wrote it all and everything like you used to.
Yeah.
Everything was in BASIC, wasn't it? Even the network was in BASIC, wasn't it?
Ethernet, wasn't it, on the BBC?
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
play
Yeah,
Kindred,
that was all in
right,
BASIC.
and change stuff.
You could just list it and change it. It was ace.
We
Yeah.
did.
Everybody written in BASIC.
Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
what I mean.
Yeah, but
Great.
this is why this was so great, because when you start to program in BASIC on those machines, and little by little you will learn about architecture that you're using, right? You will find you will learn little tricks and tips and so on, right? And today's, if you look at Raspberry Pi and other platforms that are developed for the learning process for the kids and stuff like that, and then they develop some kind of online environment where you can program that and work with that. You don't have to actually know anything about the architecture that you're working on. It's kind of disconnected. You don't have to know anything. So that's the learning isn't there. You will not learn anything. So that's the main problem with today's modern equipment in comparison to the old one, because whatever platform whatever computer that you were choosing in the back in the days, whether it's Spectrum or Commodore 64, eventually you would learn those tips and tricks and to fix little things, and you would learn about that platform. So that was like great stuff. Today is that it's a little bit, I don't know how to explain this, but it's a little bit off, and it's not very.
Yeah,
that's true. I mean, the likes of the Pi and stuff has helped to reintroduce some of it to youngsters.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Like, my son is enjoying his playing around with his Pico and putting it, because we bought him something, from Christmas. He's listening in. Basically, he had some stuff that he's putting stuff together. Santa and us got together, and we got him some stuff to build some stuff. And it's all the little components and all, LDRs and sensors and different things and LEDs, all that kind of stuff. He's loving it. He's loving it. I said to him, look, can you do the Knight Rider across these LEDs on the breadboard? And he had a go, and he got it going.
Oh, wow. Nice.
That's brilliant. Cool. Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, he did say to me at first, what do you mean Knight Rider?
Knight Rider, yeah.
Oh, yeah, sorry. There's a bit of a gap there, isn't there? See, there was this thing called Knight Rider and a car called Kit. What?
I'm the same, to be honest, at work, because I keep mentioning films and stuff. And I think, why haven't you seen these films?
You don't know it.
And I realise there's like 20, 30 years difference in age.
That's right. A long time ago, Neil. That's why. Nobody gets what? Mine's just pretty weird when you come. I've come across a few people who've said to me, "Oh, I've never seen Star Wars." And I go, "Really?"
Exactly.
That's a bit weird.
Or Back to the Future or the Goonies. They're looking at me and going,
the Goonies,
"What's that?"
Goonies.
Exactly. How can you not see the Goonies or Back to the Future? Where you been, under a rock?
Exactly. But of course, it's true. It just all moves on because it's in reverse as well, isn't it, Neil? They tell us stuff as well about the things that they're doing. I go, what? What are you talking about? I've got this thing. They go, Dad, do you know this thing? No, I haven't got a clue what you're on about.
Yeah, that's it.
It's funny, bless them.
Yeah, but again, that's the difference, because when we were kids, the dream was to find a pirate ship full of treasure, right? That was it. Today it's dream to post on TikTok and stuff like that. So it's completely different metric system at all.
Yeah.
That is true. Totally different social currency. Isn't it?
Yes,
it's just totally
exactly.
different. That's right. It's true. But to be fair, we had this. It's the same with all younger generations, isn't it? I mean, there's that point where you are there's a big gap between you and your parents or your elders, the grandparents, and that. There's a big gap between where you are, and I guess that will just continue to perpetuate, really. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I think where you're saying that the software is abstracted away from the hardware now.
Yes,
that's exactly right. In my job, I deal with PLCs, and that's stayed a completely different way, where the code is always tied to the hardware it's running on. You've got a program, but they're not interchangeable.
Yeah.
And where things have moved on, you've got things like Python and stuff like that, which is like an interpreted. I think you can compile Python. I never use it myself.
You can, yeah, but it's still going to be somewhat interpreted on the fly.
Yeah.
It's abstracted away from its hardware, isn't it? It's like a universal type language.
That's right.
And it's okay for a stepping stone, but you're going to miss something critical with it.
Yes. Like, especially when something doesn't work, they go, well, why doesn't it work?
Exactly.
They have no way of actually figuring it out. Because it's like, well, the computer said no, basically.
Yeah.
I clicked the button and nothing happened. And I don't know what, I have no sense of how I could debug it or figure out what's going on. I don't know.
Exactly.
And you get it with younger developers. So I'm a developer by trade. I work in software. And so you get some, even the new grads, and you talk to them about some lower level stuff, and they're like, care? They look at you like Manuel. People are going to have all these references now. 40 towers, care? Yeah, exactly. You know how the stuff goes through and how this all kind of chunks together? Why is this inefficient? Because you've written it in a really bad high level way. You need to understand what's going on under the covers to get the most out of it. You know, what was the point? Because that's the other thing. We always knew back in the day you started with basic, but then you quickly realize, hang on a minute, this is not cutting it, is it? Especially trying to do something graphical. I need to understand what's going on inside with the processor. And then, hang on, I can do all this stuff without, a much lower level. And all of a sudden my stuff looks good. It works quicker and so on.
See, all that basic low-level stuff is still there, and they don't even realize that they're using it.
No, that's right.
If they use let me an example, Excel spreadsheet. It's still greater than, smaller than A strings and this, that, and other going down it, and point is where it needs to go, like you would do in a Commodore. You would point the memory location where to go and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I was doing the Excel training, it was like blown away. It was like, wow, all this is coming back to me now. Like, it's
that
all
is true.
It's like basic.
That is true.
Yeah.
It is true. Exactly.
I don't know, Steve. Excel can be a bit wanky when you want to do something.
Dude, I'm crap on Excel, but I understand what it works.
I'm the same, and I work in what's his name support, and I'm crap at Excel. And if they send a message, a ticket saying Excel, I go, Jack, the young lad who's opposite me, Jack, don't do that. If there's any hardware tickets, I'll sort them. Well,
that's called using your tools of the trade, isn't it?
Yeah, we work as a team. Obviously, I've come from a hardware background, and the reason I took that job was because I was doing hardware all the time, and I thought, I've been doing it since 1991. I want to enjoy more doing it at home, and I took on that support role, and I've learned a lot more about software, I must admit, but it still goes above my head sometimes. I think, what the hell's that? I Google it.
I think Google has taken the load for a lot of different things.
Definitely. Without Google, I'd be lost, mate.
What does your doctor do when you used to go and sit down and talk to him?
Google it.
Take some of them.
Yeah, secret, definitely. Yeah.
It's very true. We've all adapted to using that and depending on it as well in our own ways, haven't we?
Yeah.
So, and that's why it's nice sometimes. Like what I do is, this is why I love doing stuff like one load on the 64, because it forces me back down that route of because when I'm throwing together a prototype or I'm doing a test, I am going to do it the quickest fucking way I can. There's no point. I'm just proving a point and it's good enough. That'll do. Yep. But sometimes you got to get it just dead right. And I love that with machine code, because you've got that such fine control over what it is actually really doing. And I just love that. And you're saying, youngsters don't really know that. But Excel can be like that. The one the one to sort out the men from the boys is to calculate a factorial in a single equation.
A what?
A factorial. So a number times itself, right?
Yeah.
Just a minute while I Google factorial.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to do, mate.
And a single formula.
Using big words now.
A factorial is that much of a cunt. It's signified by an exclamation mark.
Yes,
How bad it is.
that's right. You can actually just get it to do it for you. That's right.
Oh.
Try and do it by hand.
Yeah. Anyway, we've got
horrible.
Chat GPT now, haven't we? We just go write me a script for.
Is it always right though? That's the problem. Yeah, I've looked at some of that stuff. Actually, it's Copilot as well. So GitHub have done this Copilot thing, which is plugged into a lot of IDs now. And I'll be honest, it's actually pretty good if you use it properly. Like you use it as a tool.
Yeah.
Don't rely on it. Don't overly rely on it because
No,
if
I
you
don't
do,
rely on
you're
it.
gonna
I
get-
use
you're
it
gonna
for
fuck
like
later.
if I do a few scripts, it works. I run the
Yes.
scripts through it and see can you enhance this a bit better, and it does do quite
That's
a good
right.
job.
It
Yeah.
is good in that way, to be fair. So
I do find it annoying seeing all these pictures, all these AI generated cartoon pictures that are popping up all over social media at the moment. I
There's
don't see any
loads.
creativity in
Yeah.
it because it's just
No.
somebody that give it parameters and that's what it's generated.
I mean, the last my last
Cool.
no, the one before last was it. I did generate the image for the thumbnail for OneLoad because I just said, but boy in a bedroom, an 80s bedroom with posters. And stuff. That's pretty cool. But yeah, it's a shame if I suppose it's a bit like it's a bit of a weird example to use really, but it's like all of the old trades as well, things like Thatchers and stuff. A lot of that stuff's being lost, isn't it, as a skill because people don't learn how to do it anymore the old way, the proper way. And what ends up happening is a cheap facsimile of something else. It's not really as good as it used to be. And so when people talk about it was better back in our day and all that kind of stuff, sometimes they're absolutely right because it was made and built properly instead of it being half-assed. That'll do, sort of stuff, or didn't really understand how it worked, sort of stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Still use it as a tool anyway.
Yeah.
Don't overly rely on it.
With the Arduinos and the PICs, you've still got the option of hitting machine code if you want to do something funky.
You can do inline assembler, can't you? On the Arduino.
I've not tried that.
Yeah, you can actually because you do C and then break out into, and you can either do it. Actually, to be fair, you do it line by line if you do it the way that they tell you to do it. But there's another way of doing it, kind of break out properly. But of course, you've always been able to sort of share. We did do that. Share machine code libraries with other higher level stuff that you're doing. Those speed critical bits, and they did that in games a lot, didn't they? Still do. They still write actually game stuff. Still, a lot of it is still written in assembler. Some of the really critical pieces,
critical parts, yes.
So the graphics engine and stuff. Yeah. So, but
I hate C.
Yeah,
I've never liked it.
I like it.
I like C.
Yeah,
but,
nice.
Yeah, I hate Java more.
Oh, definitely.
Java,
Wrong.
Yes.
Java
is awful.
That's horrible as well.
Used
It's
to
horrible language.
Ooh,
It's like boilerplate. It's like long
gaming.
Exactly. Yeah. I did Pascal at school. That was it. Well, you had to list all the variables first. Always remember you had to list all the variables at the start, otherwise it wouldn't work. You couldn't add variables halfway through.
I mean, back in the day, I mean, when I had Vic 20 at 64, and then the mum sent me off on a programming course where I went once a week to this shop and they taught you how to, it just taught you basic, really. I mean, I was only about 11, 12 at the time. So I started to write my own adventure games, a bit like Hobbit, where you had the graphics at the top and your text at the bottom where you were going to move north, south, left, west, all that.
Oh,
and I really enjoyed doing that. And I remember taking it with me to Morecambe, and I had it in black case, and I carried my 64 into the caravan, and I sat there, loaded it up, did some more programming, saved it to tape, and power went off. And I probably spent about 2 months writing this program. Gone. Did I have a backup? No. I sort of didn't venture into it anymore, but I do enjoy playing around with it, especially little bits like changing borders and making your name scroll around and stuff, just so you can show kids still what you can actually do with a computer if you wanted to, sort of thing. But I never developed into the machine code side of it, so I have no understanding of machine code at all, which is a bit of a shame because I think I should have gone down that alleyway first rather than learning basic, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean it's just smaller building blocks, really. It's the same. You still got the same kind of concepts, really. It's just you're doing it at a much lower level. So sometimes it can feel like, oh, blimey, this is kind of a lot I'm having to do here. And remember as well, because obviously is at that level, you've got to remember everything yourself.
Yep.
You know, because you are bare metal, it's up to you. You know, this is the other thing with high level languages, garbage collection, and I don't have to worry about allocating memory or any of those things. Do you know what I mean? But obviously with assembly, you have to do that. But once you but I do, in fairness, I do remember first doing assembler and going, oh my God, I'm never going to learn this. I can never do this. This is too complicated. But then it's just clicks and you go, actually, I prefer this.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
It's actually really more, instructions are very, very simple, and it's really easy language. But the problem is when you want to do something that is visible, something visual, something that is more complex, then it's really lots of code you have to do, right?
That's right.
To do some task, right? But it's really, really easy and elegant way to program things. I mean, it's beautiful, actually. If you think about it. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Even to how they actually design the instruction sets as well with the processor. Because again, it's so tied to how the whole thing works. And that's why if you look at across the 6502 instruction set, then you see 6510, of course, but 6502.
652. Okay.
You see how there are those groups of actual instructions because of the way that it's actually kind of embedded into the hardware.
Yeah.
So and that's why they've got those undocumented instructions in between as well, haven't they?
Yeah.
So you can actually do stuff that they didn't intend you to do, and it's got it's like an amalgam of a couple of near close instructions, but it does something slightly different because it was never meant to be used. Quite interesting, and that's because it's so tied to the way that the process is built and the way it works.
Yeah, when you do stuff in assembly, then you realize that you're working with the hardware. You're actually working with the CPU, with the hardware. That's it. No other language can give you that. So that's it.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Okay. So I was going to show you this, guys, because Lee. FPGA. I finally gone FPGA, but I got one of these and the pockets. They're quite good, actually.
Is that
the
analog pocket?
Yeah, the analog pocket. So I finally bit the bullet and got one of these. Actually, I had some help to get it. Someone helped me get it in the States, actually. But it's a good device. But do you know that you see they charge 200 quid for just the dock?
Hey.
And all it is a USB hub with a HDMI out.
Does that work like a portable Mister?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it hasn't got as much, obviously, ability. The FPGA itself hasn't got the ability to kind of match that, but it's somewhere near there, and it plays all. So that's an original, obviously.
I was going to say, is the original Game Boy cart in the back,
but it actually now they've done this open FPGA as well. So of course, a lot of the guys are porting the cores across from the Mister. They won't be able to do all of them because it just doesn't have the grunt of a Mister. Mm-hmm. Or D10 Nano, isn't it? Whatever. But it's still a good little device. And I've had quite a bit of fun. And it is nice. It is. I don't know, Lee. We'd had this conversation before as well, didn't we? And you were right. What you said was, look, and because there was a movement, wasn't there, at the beginning? It was like, well, if you do FPGA, it's always going to be perfect. It's like, no. If it's not set up and done properly, it's not going to be perfect, is it? Just like emulation.
Yeah.
So, and of course, that people do fall into that trap, don't they? It's like, oh well, it's on the Mister, it must be exactly the same, and it's like, well, no, it's not. And they're still finding the odd issue. I was talking to somebody yesterday, found an issue in the 64 core, where we were talking about digis earlier, and they'd actually forgotten to basically change it for the newer SID chip, so it was actually sort of making the sound incorrect, and it's been there for ages in that core. So, and it's like, well, that's not correct, is it? That's not correct. That's not how it's supposed to work if you choose that chip. So but it is interesting stuff. And I think there's definitely space for both. Because there's that thing, isn't it? People keep going on about input lag and stuff like that. But I don't notice it on a lot of emulators if it's running on decent enough hardware. Do you guys?
No.
Not really. Maybe it's because we're older and you're getting a bit slower, but I don't know.
Don't notice.
Your lag's between your brain and controller, really.
But no, honestly, I don't see. I know I've seen it before. Of course, I've seen instances where it's running on hardware that's not quite up to mustard and that kind of thing. But generally, I don't notice that because people talk about so much lag. Is there? I can't see it.
Yeah.
I'm the same. To be honest, I'm the same when people say to me, I'm looking at it and think, yeah, it's running dead smooth. He's going, no, I can see lag. I'm like, there's no lag there. It's running smooth as hell.
I can feel it a little bit on the C64.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mini. On the mini one, yeah.
I were on Maxi.
I've not really given that a good play, really.
If you, I know it sounds silly, but if you go on real hardware and play a particular game, say for half an hour, and then go and playing it on that, you notice the difference. You're having to jump early and things like that. Do you know what I mean? It's really strange. But if you were just playing the C64 all the time, you probably wouldn't notice it. You'd just automatically adjust.
You know those Atari VCSs that they released?
Yeah. The new ones, the Plus.
The VCS it was called.
Can't remember that one.
Well,
right.
My other half imported me one from the States, and I put an SSD.
I know which one you mean. Yeah. The wooden one with the light up Atari logo. They look mint. Yeah.
So I put Windows 10 on it, and I've loaded up RetroArch and front end and that, and I can play on that, and I can't feel any lag.
No.
At all. And that's just RetroArch, emulation. No lag that I can detect. And that's for nearly all the machines that it can emulate. But I think maybe Ben's probably got closer to it by saying that the stuff that ain't quite there, i.e. the lower powered devices, you're probably going to feel it more in. And that would be the 64 and the the VIC-20. Because they've only got like a little ARM processor in them, I think. Single board integrated job.
They are.
There's not much in them.
Don't need much so.
You are?
We're talking about obviously as well, the C64 stuff. That's an old version of Vice as well, isn't it? It's 2.4 or something. It's like it's about 10 plus years old.
Yeah.
So they've definitely made some improvements in the emulation since then as well.
Definitely.
So which is kind of mind-boggling in a way, because it proves the point that there isn't such a thing as a perfect emulation in a way, and FPGA is in the same category really.
Yep.
Because they do cheat as well, don't they, Lee? Sometimes they haven't got enough. I don't know. They can't quite fit it in exactly the way it's supposed to be as well. So they'll cut a few corners because it's like, well, it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough.
I don't think emulation will ever be perfect. I think when you're playing on the original hardware, you're playing the original hardware. That's it. There's always something about it. I've always said this to Steve.
I do agree.
I said emulation's good. I must admit. I mean, I do use emulation myself sometimes on the TV just for playing games, especially the arcade games, etc. But
that's right.
It's still not the same of getting on like the original hardware. I don't know what it is.
The magic. If I'm going to go on for a quick blast, then I'm going to pick up the Capstan Pro and play it. But if I'm going to sit down and really want to play a game for a few hours, then I'll fire up the Ultimate and plug in a USB controller.
Exactly, yeah.
Because them things stuck in your hands. I don't know how the hell we managed back in the day, but they make your hands hurt so bloody much.
They do, don't they?
Noise from it.
Right.
So that is the nostalgia of it, and they are lovely to use. But prolonged stuff, I think I prefer my Ultimate and a USB controller. To be fair,
I agree.
That's where we've gone full circle, because at the beginning, when you're talking about the near field communication, it's the physicalness of it. Yeah. I think that's part of it when you're going back to real hardware. It's having that physical contact with it.
Yep.
As opposed to running an emulated program. But me, I'm a big advocate for emulators.
No, you are. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you love your Mister. Yeah.
Well, no. Yeah, the Mister's
FPGA.
a bit different, but
yeah, I know what I mean. Yeah, but you do like what's the name? But yeah, I think I prefer real hardware over like anything.
I mean, I do, but I still like the Ultimate because you've got all the options there from the Ultimate cartridge.
That's right. You've got those options. I mean, Neil, you said about arcade stuff. It's not like, oh, well, who's going to actually have all of those boards?
Exactly. Yeah. Imagine all those machines in your house.
And then you've got and how the boss will be, very pleased about that. Yeah. So, it's like, well, realistically, there's really only one way for me to enjoy this, and that is through emulation, realistically.
Exactly, yeah.
Thing. But I also love emulation, but I also do very much love real hardware as well. And you can't, it's that sense. Even the things like we were talking about earlier, the CRT, when you sit in front of that 1701 and you look at it, you know that it's the same as what you saw back then.
It's like those little niggly bits like the keyboard and everything, and the loading of the cassette and the sound the cassette makes of ejection and stuff. It's all different. It all adds that nostalgia feeling, which sends those feelings flooding back to you when you were a kid.
That's right.
That's what it is.
And the ultimate does do disk drive sounds, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Emulates the sound. Yeah.
Doesn't it? You can actually get it to make the sound of the drive, even though there is no drive.
It doesn't sound like it properly, but it does emulate it. At least you know what's happening.
But it's interesting, isn't it? How you try to recapture that experience exactly.
Yeah.
And that's again why I harp on about this, but this for me, when I saw it, was a bit of a eureka moment. It's a bit like, well, that's
brilliant.
Cool,
that is,
in the middle, like we can use this, and again, coming back to the kids love it too. They can just go
like picking the cassette up,
and they're still on real hardware though as well. That's what it even blew the guys on the Mr. guy. There's Tap 2 guys when we did the first thing about it working on a 64. They didn't believe us. They thought we were actually using something else inside, like a pie or something.
You have to open it up.
But no, this is really now. To be fair, there's a teensy in between, so we're not fully doing it with a 64, are we? Because that would be mad. I mean, technically, it's probably possible, but I wouldn't really want to write a whole USB host trying to do it on that serial interface. But having said all of that, it still results in the same thing. It's that, and it's also that kind of very quick loading and stuff. Because Travis it's me, but obviously I've been tweaking one load quite a bit. So one of the things when you turn on a 64, it goes black screen and then it comes up with the blue screen. What it's doing for you guys probably know this, it's doing a memory test, and that takes like a couple of seconds. So what I was doing was looking at the actual kernel ROM and going, well, what does it actually do, and how could I write the same code but skip that bit? So I gave it. That's what one load 64 does. It just doesn't do the memory check. It's like, well, the memory's good or bad. It's not really.
You got to work on that. Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like load it and hope for the best. And because it doesn't, I don't know what it. I mean, does it theoretically crash or do something? It's not like it displays an error message if it crashes. I think it's more along the lines it will just crash if it fails the memory test.
Depends what location.
It'll just freeze. Huh?
It depends.
Sorry, what was that?
It depends where in memory.
True.
Your error.
Exactly. So it might just freeze up. But the point being is that I spoke to Travis about that. I said, look, you can put this in the same into your cart boot up sequence. And then it went from like, it showed just like we did when we pressed we were talking about action replay, press the button and the screen would go kind of weird as it flicks between video modes.
Mm-hmm.
And then takes you back to like what you would normally see as like, the screen, the character screen setup. Because obviously the 64 has those different modes. But obviously that looked a bit naff when you put one of these in and there's a load of garbage on the screen. I said, well, you can cheat. You can just do this. And you put it in, it's like, it's almost instant. And then they just didn't believe it. They thought we'd actually, cheated somehow, but we didn't. We sorted, but we did actually use the real hardware. So
it reminded me a little bit when I first saw the card and you put the sticker on it with the pin connector printed on the sticker at the top.
Yeah,
it reminded me of a lot of the Master System cards you used to get, the games on the cards back in the day. Yeah,
that's right. It's like the Who card. This original design wasn't mine. The Tap 2 guys had already done this, and then they'd done a top piece differently. And I just thought, well, the quickest and easiest way I know is just kind of give you that sense of the Commodore cartridges of old.
Exactly. That's really cool. That is.
Yeah, it's nice.
Very nice.
So what's going to be next for the one load then?
I've had a bit of a break from one load, to be honest with you. Well, not just because of this either. So I'll be honest with you guys, because each release, it gets harder and harder to find games to add. Like I've never intended OneLoad to be completionist. Like I've never set out to go, right, I'm going to have every single game that was ever released. You know, that's not really the plan. But we're getting quite high now. I'm getting on for nearly 2,500, which is about a quarter of the sort of, you know, people talk about 10 to 15,000, don't they? But obviously it's like, it's getting harder. And to be honest with you, when I get that yearly, that's why I do a yearly release. Because if I was trying to do it more often, it would be a bit taxing, if I'm being honest. Because some games are like 5 minutes done. Other games can take hours. Like to try and you have to reverse engineer the whole bloody thing because it's trying to do something silly or using the IO registers in an odd way or the timing and the interrupts. You've got to get it just right. Some games are really fussy, and so I've kind of taken a bit of a break from it. That's why I do it kind of. I don't actually start it at the beginning of the year. So this is a kind of people are listening and going, think I work on it all the time. I don't. Because for my sanity, I don't. But for OneLoad 64, we've got quite a few plans. I mean, first thing I want to do is democratize it. What does that mean? Well, basically, I've written a tool that I've actually written in C# .NET, and that's what I've been using the whole time. So basically, very early on, I realized I'm not going to be doing this by hand over and over and over in a hex editor. Sod that. So basically, I wrote a little tool, but it was never meant to be publicly released because it's just an internal tool that I used, and I knew how it worked. It wasn't necessarily the most user-friendly thing, but it worked with my way of working. So what I've been doing is working with another chap, Boris, from the Lemon forums, and kind of turning that into something we can share, so that other people can then submit to it first of all. So I've been doing quite a bit on that, so that other people can take a bit of the load, hopefully. It's not like I'm going to give it up, because I do still love doing it, but it'd be nice to get some other people. But also still multi-load. The whole multi-load thing, it's Solo is a chap that in Manchester, actually, he's been actually cracking out a load of multi-load conversions. He's done a really good job. But what we're trying to look at is trying to turn that tool into something that can be more generic and more adaptive to a kind of general workflow. But it's tricky because multi-load stuff, this is the thing, the older stuff we talked about, different things that they can do, and tape's a bit easier, but one load routine is very different to another, and so you have this challenge of kind of like, how do I get it back to something I can use easily? But we're trying our best to kind of put in, we've got some stuff working that should help to sort of convert more of those multi-load games, because we've got that extra folder with other people's stuff, but it would be nice to have everything it's officially part of the set, that because we've been quite strict. I've been quite strict with this. You guys probably maybe have noticed this, but lots of people ask me, why didn't you just go and take a lot of the crack stuff and just take the crack off and just do it that way? And of course that would be easier, right? But I always felt that was a bit sort of, it's a bit weird, but it's a bit frowned upon. It's like, well, you could do that, but in a way, it's kind of a bigger sense of satisfaction actually taking the original game and turning it into something that can be used for the cartridge. So that's why we've kind of been quite tough on that one. There's a couple of exceptions. There's a few unreleased games that were only ever available from the scene because they were never actually got officially released. So we do make an exception here and there, but we try to stick to that, and that's why you notice probably there's this whole folder that actually makes up the biggest part of the collection, is the tap dumps and the D64s and all the stuff. So rips of original media, but I've always wanted to include that along because I wanted it to be something someone else could pick up later as well, like go back to and go, because it's documented. There's all this stuff that lots of people will look at it and go, why on earth did you include that? But I include these XML files that have got all my notes and all the kind of bits and pieces that I've put in there as any special stuff we've done. So that people can refer back to it. Because that's the thing with the scene. They don't do any of that, do they? They don't talk about what they actually do. They don't really share it. And it's, when you look at it, a lot of it's daft anyway. It's like, oh, well, it's not really that, some of it can get really difficult. Like I said, the disk stuff can get really tricky. When they do funky stuff on the processor, on the 1541 and stuff, it is hardcore difficult to understand what's going on. It's not written, but a lot of this, when you talk about EA and stuff, they were producing stuff that took stuff that was written by people and complicated enough, but then it ran it through all sorts of XORing and encryption essentially, and it's doing these on the fly decryptions and stuff, and it's like, oh my god, what is it doing? I just want to see some code. I just want to see something that I can understand. That gets tricky, but that's really the future. And one final thing I think is and this is kind of a weird one, because lots of people say, well, the whole point of one load 64 is you don't have stuff in between at the middle, at the beginning. But we want to add and introduce a optional trainer menu so that you can perhaps hold up on both joysticks or something, and it will go into the trainer menu and you can activate cheats if you want to. That's another thing we've been looking at as well. So yeah, there's a load of other stuff as well, but I don't know if it'll ever get. But maybe somebody else will pick it up once I open source it.
You mean like a standard sort of trainer across them all?
So no, it'll be specific to each game, because obviously it still has to know what memory adjusters and whatever to patch.
Yeah.
If we add one, it's optional. So if you don't do anything when you're booting up, it won't appear. But if you hold up, I'm thinking both joysticks or something like that, or a certain key on the keyboard, although Pugsy, one of the guys on the Lemon forums, did say, this is another thing with emulation, it works perfectly on a real Commodore 64. If you are holding down a key, it will actually detect it during boot up. But on the emulators, it won't. It can't detect that you're actually holding down a key in that very first critical few cycles of the actual boot up. So little things like that. But yeah, just little tweaks, really. I mean, the biggest thing for me, I really wanted to see, and I'm sure I know other people enjoy it, is with those carts is having the ability to have the loading screens and music so that you still have that sense and you can sit there and listen to it if you want to, because that's a whole thing that gets lost in a lot of the scene stuff. It was on the cutting room floor, right? Because it's like, well, I don't need that. That's the bit that was dropped out and loaded over the top when the game had sort of finished loading. But I wanted to keep that. And I think those simulated raster bars and stuff, for me, it's still part of the experience. So that's kind of always been my mission with One Load 64, is that, yes, make a contemporary solution, but also still have those elements that allow you to kind of hark back, if that makes sense. So, yeah.
Exactly. Good shout.
So, what's next for anyone else? Lee, what have you been doing? Because I don't think you've even told us much about what you've been up to, have you? What have you been fiddling with? Except for don't tell us yourself again, please. Yeah.
So I've been playing around with function ROMs on the C128. So that's I'm going to make a video about that. I haven't done anything for a couple of weeks because I've been working away, but I'm going to make a video about that. And I'm also going to chuck in a Pico into a C128 and see if I can't get that to fall over. That Pi Pico SID chip is pretty bloody good.
It sounded well, yeah.
Yep.
So
it sounds good.
That's pretty much it. I've got to finish making up a batch because Steve wants one, and I've got about 5 that are half built. So
yeah, I want one as well.
Yeah.
It did look very good from what you were showing on your vids before. It's like,
I was really impressed.
Yeah, because it's the Pico one that's new, isn't it? Because the earliest one didn't use that, obviously, but it's got the Pico itself there.
Yeah, the SID kick was teensy to begin with.
Yeah, teensy, wasn't it? Yeah, it was actually, wasn't it? Yeah, you're thinking about it was. Yeah.
I did a video on that, and that was good. That was brilliant. But a teensy's what, 29 quid?
It's quite expensive. That's right.
And this is a Raspberry Pi Pico at 4 quid. And a board, right. So probably cost you about 6 quid to build one. It's ridiculously cheap.
So I've done a few comparison videos between like the Swin SID and the ARM SID and the original 6581 and the 800 series SID. I've done a couple of them, so I'm quite interested to be able to do another one now and try it with that one that Lee just put together. Definitely. So I thought I might just do one with the Swin, with the ARM, with that, and with the original, just swapping backwards and forwards like I did before, just so people can hear what the differences are between them.
Yep.
Well, I had it fall over in my bread bin, and I don't know why. And I spoke to the guy that did it, the same guy that made the Sidekick, and he said it's got to be your hardware. But on that last video I released, I actually put the real 6581 back in the socket, and it's fine. It works. So that's I'm a little bit wobbly about that, but I'm going to fire it up in the C128 and see what happens, because this other guy called Retro Tech Insanity, he did a video about the ARM SID, and there's a few nuances with the C128 because it runs faster. And I don't know if there's a few registers being missed where it's not quite quick enough on the update. But
Maybe.
I'm going to try it with a Pico and see if it shits itself. So
2 choices.
yeah, exactly.
I get smoke.
Bench test it. Oh, it shit itself. Oh well. Back to the drawing board then.
The function ROM thing's good though. I've got a custom function ROM to show, so that'll be all right. And yeah, that'll be
Cool.
good.
Nice.
So
You don't want
So-
smoke in your room. You don't want smoke in your room. I got smoke in my room off that power supply and it still stinks in here.
And it wasn't me for
Issues
that.
now.
No.
I've not really looked into it too much. I just took the decision to dump it and put an ATX power supply in it instead. It'd be far safer.
Like BBCs, you should give them to discos, I think. Plug them in so they get the smoke effect.
That's it.
Yeah, every one of them blow up.
well, we're coming up to
Oh well.
we're coming up to an hour and 3/4. So let's wrap this up and
Okay.
all stay online while we kick out. So I'm just going to say to everyone at home, thanks for watching and take it easy. And we'll be back soon. And see you on the next one.
So,
See you
guys.
again, guys.
Okay, guys.
See you later.